Hey there guys, welcome to the video. My name is Pushpinder Gill, and in this video we're going to be talking about revenues, right? So this is another video on cost, revenue and profit, and this is the video on revenues, right? So let's go ahead and get started guys. So before I get started, I would actually like to define what revenue is. So revenue is something which is actually equal to your total selling price, the money that you generate by selling your products. So it's actually the total selling price. So this is something which actually includes the profit, and this is something which includes the cost as well. So revenue is actually the total selling price, which is equal to the profit and the cost. Now let's go ahead and talk about different types of revenue. Let's talk about the measurement of revenue. So how do we measure revenue? If I were to talk about the measurement of revenue, the first thing that comes to my mind, it's actually total revenue, right? So total revenue. Now total revenue is denoted by TR. Now total revenue is the total money that a firm receives from selling a certain amount of good or service in a given time period. So it's actually the total money that is generated by selling your goods, right? So selling the goods. Now if I say, let's suppose total revenue is actually going to be equal to the price for each good into the number of units you sell. So P is the price for each good, right? And Q is the number of goods sold. This is what we call as total revenue, right? So let's say, for example, if I'm selling, let's suppose 10 toys, and each toy costs $50, then my total revenue is equal to 50 times 10, which is actually equal to $500. So that's my total revenue. Now let's go ahead and define what is the second type of revenue, that is actually the average revenue. Now average revenue is actually the average revenue per unit of production, right? Which is actually equal to the total revenue divided by the number of units sold. Now you already know that total revenue is actually equal to P times Q and divided by Q. So we have this to be equal to P. So average revenue is nothing but the price of each unit, right? So that is what average revenue is. Now the third thing that I'd like to talk about is actually the marginal revenue. Now what is the marginal revenue? Marginal revenue is actually the revenue generated. So marginal revenue is the revenue generated by selling. So it's the revenue generated by selling an extra unit of product, by selling an extra unit of product. So mathematically, marginal revenue, which is actually denoted as MR, is equal to the change in the total revenue divided by the change in the product, right? So it's the change in the revenue divided by the change in the product. So let's suppose if I'm producing 50 products and I'm generating $5,500 revenue. If I'm producing 55 products, I'm generating $6,000 revenue. So marginal revenue would be the change in revenue, that is 6,000 minus 5,500, divided by the change in the product, which is 55 minus 50. So that is going to be the marginal revenue. Now let's go ahead and plot these revenues onto curves. Now before we do that, there are actually two ways in which you can plot them. So the first way is, how do you plot the revenues? How do you plot the revenues when the price does not change? So when the price does not change with the output, right? So when the price does not change with the output. Now, if you watch the elasticity videos, you would actually know about something known as the price elasticity of demand. So I'll actually define the price elasticity of demand right here. This is something which is denoted as PED as well. This is actually equal to the percentage change in demand. So the percentage change in quantity demanded, right? So the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price. So it's percentage change in the quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price. So percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in the price. Now the question says that revenue when price does not change with the output, right? So when the price does not change with the output, then what is going to be the price elasticity of demand? Now the price is not changing with the output at all. That means the percentage change in the price is 0 and there is some percentage change in quantity demanded. Now read this line again. When price does not change with the output, that means the percentage change in the price is actually 0, which means the price elasticity of demand is actually infinite. Now, when the price elasticity of the demand is infinite, there is no percentage change in demand. Sorry, there's no percentage change in the price. Now, let me show you that with an example here. Let's suppose that the price of the product, it's always 5. It's always $5. Doesn't matter what is my quantity demanded. Let's suppose my quantity demanded is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And the price remains 5, doesn't matter what it is. But what about the total revenue, which is actually equal to the price into the quantity demanded? This is going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35. So that is 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, and so on. What about the average revenue, which is actually equal to price only? So that is actually going to remain equal to price only. And what about the marginal revenue? So the marginal revenue is actually the change in price divided by, the change in revenue divided by the change in quantity. So 10 minus 5 is 5 and 2 minus 1 is 5. So the marginal revenue also remains 5 consistently, right? Because you can clearly see here 15 minus 10 is 5, 3 minus 2 is 1. So 5 by 1 is 5. 20 minus 15 is 5 and 4 minus 3 is 1. So the marginal revenue remains the same. So if I were to plot this, these things onto the graph, let's suppose this is my output and this over here is my price, then my average revenue and my marginal revenue is actually going to be equal to 5. So this line is actually going to be my average revenue, which is actually equal to marginal revenue. Now this is only when the price elasticity of demand is actually infinite. Right? So I suppose you're understanding what I'm trying to say here. And what about the total revenue? The total revenue is something which it's actually equal to this. It actually keeps on increasing. So the total revenue is actually going to be equal to, it's actually going to be an ever increasing function like this. So this is something which is known as the total revenue. Right? So this is how you plot when the revenues, when price does not change with the output. Well, that is something which actually does not happen very often with in reality, right? In reality, the price will change as you change the as the quantity demanded changes, right? So if the quantity demanded is high, the price is less. If the quantity demanded is less, the price is high. It keeps on fluctuating. So then what happens? Now this is the case I'm truly concerned with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's suppose this is the quantity demanded and this is the price associated with it. Let's suppose the quantity demanded is 0 and the price is $50. So this is something which is in dollars. And let's suppose the quantity demanded is 2, the price decreases, that becomes $45. It becomes 4, 6, 8. So these are the numbers that actually I'll have to assume: 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. And the price keeps on decreasing as the quantity demanded increases. So the price keeps on decreasing like this. All right. Okay. So when there is no quantity demanded, the price is $50, and when there are 20 units of quantity demanded, the price is $0. Right? So it's clearly an evident thing that as the quantity demanded is going to increase, the price is going to decrease. Now what about the total revenue? So the total revenue is 0 into 50, which is 0. This is 45 times 2, which is 90. 40 times 4 is 160. 35 times 5 is 210. Then we have 240. Then we have 250. I suppose you can make out now what these numbers mean, right? So this is 210 again, and we have 160, and we have 90, and we have 0. Let's calculate the average revenue. So the average revenue is actually going to be the total revenue divided by the it's actually going to be the total revenue divided by the quantity demanded, so which is actually going to be equal to the price only. So it's actually going to be equal to the price only. So 45, 40, 35, 30 is actually going to be equal to the price. So this is how it's going to be. And now let's calculate the marginal revenue. Now what is going to be the marginal revenue? That is going to be the change. So I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to draw lines here like this, just for the sake of convenience, so that later on we're actually able to identify which one belongs where, right? Okay, so marginal revenue for this term, for here, it's actually going to be the change in total revenue, which is 90, divided by the change in quantity demanded, that is 2, which is going to be 45. Over here is going to be 35. Over here is going to be 25. Over here is going to be 15. Over here is going to be 5, 5, negative 15, negative 25, negative 35, and negative 45. You can clearly see the change in total revenue. It's kind of 160 minus 90, and the change in total quantity demanded is 2. So it's gonna be simply 90 divided by 2, which is actually equal to, I'm sorry, this over here. Okay, so it's gonna be 90 minus 0, which is 90, divided by 18 minus 20, that is 2, which is actually negative 45. Alright, so the last thing that is left before we actually make a lot of conclusions, it's the price elasticity of demand. So price elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. So how do I calculate the price elasticity of demand? Now, what is the percentage change in quantity demanded? Actually, I'm going to calculate it for this thing over here. So what is the percentage change in quantity demanded? From 2, it's 4. So the percentage change, so let's say this is the rough work. So from 2 to 4, my percentage change in quantity demanded is actually equal to 4 minus 2 over 2 into 100, which is actually going to be equal to 100%, right? And what is the percentage change in price? So the percentage change in price is actually equal to 45 minus 40 over 100, which is actually equal to 45 minus 40 over 45 into 100, I'm sorry, which is actually going to be 5 by 45 into 100, which is going to be 100 by 9%. So what is my percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price? So that is going to be 100 divided by 100 by 9, which is actually going to be equal to 9%. So the percentage, so the value of PED for this is actually going to be equal to, so the value for PED for this is actually going to be equal to 9. And for these two terms, for the next two terms, for the next two terms, like here, like the percentage change in quantity demanded and the divided by the percentage change in price is actually going to be 4. So we have 9, 4. So you just calculate it now. I'll leave the calculation to you. 1.22 and sorry, not 1.22, it's 2.33. Then we have 1.5, then we have 1, then we have 0.67, 0.43, 0.25, and 0.11. Right? So this is the price elasticity of demand. Now let's go ahead and plot these curves on our graph. So let's suppose this over here is actually our revenue. Sorry, this over here is our price, which is actually in dollars, and this over here is our quantity demanded, right? And so let's see now how does, now we have 5 here and we have 10 here and we have 15 here and we have 20 here and we have something called 25, and it goes all the way till 250, right? So let's actually plot, first of all, let's plot the marginal revenue curve. So how is the marginal revenue curve? You can see marginal revenue goes from 45, reaches 0 at 10. So it, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after the sixth term, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is going to reach 0 at 10. Fine. So, I suppose you're understanding this point over here. It's actually going to reach 0 at 10 because it's 0 between these two values, right? So it's going to reach 0 at 10. So what we're going to do here is actually a little more than 10. It's not exactly 10, a little more than 10, but we're going to call it 10. So it's actually going to start at 45. Again, it starts at 45. So it's going to start at 45. Let's suppose this over here is 50. It's going to start at about 45, and it is going to decrease, and it's going to reach 0 at about 10. So this is the marginal revenue curve. Now let's go ahead and try to find the next curve, which is actually the average revenue curve. So what is the average revenue? Average revenue starts from 45, right, and it never reaches 0. Fine. So this is it's gonna end up at 5, right? So it's gonna start from 45. It's gonna start from 45 and it's gonna end up at 5. So this is how the average revenue curve is going to be. So this is the average revenue curve. Now let's focus on the next curve, which is our total revenue curve. So let's see the total revenue curve. So total revenue starts from 0. It goes to 90, 160, 210, 240, 250. It reaches maximum at 10 again. And then again it becomes almost close to 0. So what happens is it starts from 0, right? And it reaches maximum at 10. So it reaches 250 at 10. So at this point, this is going to be the maximum, right? And again, it's going to go down to almost 0. So this is our total revenue curve. And another important thing is our price elasticity of demand. Now let's actually focus on the price elasticity of demand. Now the price elasticity of demand, it's at 9, 4, 2.33, 1.5 and 1, right? And so till these points the price elasticity of demand is 1, and after these points the price elasticity of demand is actually sorry, till this point the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, and after this is less than 1. And what is this point over here? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it's 1 for here, 2 for here, 3 for here, 4 for here, and 5 for here. So that means price elasticity of demand is gonna be 1 at the 10th unit, right? So if I were to just go ahead and plot the price elasticity of demand till this point to this point, the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. At this point right here, the price elasticity of demand is actually equal to 1, and till this point here the price elasticity of demand is actually lesser than 1, right? So this is how the curve is going to look like. So suppose you've understood all of the curve, the total revenue, the average revenue, the marginal revenue, and the price elasticity of demand. Now let's actually go ahead and understand what is the meaning of all these terms. What is the meaning of price elasticity of demand greater than 1, equal to 1, and less than 1? Now so what is price elasticity of demand? Let me just change it to another color. So price elasticity of demand is actually equal to the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. So when price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, that means just by a little change in price, I would actually be able to bring a big change in quantity demanded, right? So I'll be able to bring a big change in quantity demanded because price elasticity of demand would be greater than 1. That means the percentage change in quantity demanded will actually be greater than percentage change in price, which means if I change the percentage of price even by a little bit, the quantity demanded, the percentage of quantity demanded would be huge. So that is what we mean by price elasticity of demand greater than 1. So let's suppose if I were to say that price right now it's 1, and now the price actually becomes 2. So if I were to say the quantity demanded is 1, over here the quantity demanded is 3. So you can clearly see that by a small change in price, which is like 100% change, I'm able to bring a 200% change in the quantity demanded. So in this case, price elasticity of demand is actually greater than 1. And when is price elasticity of demand equal to 1? The percentage change in quantity demanded is exactly equal to the percentage change in price. So if the price goes from 1 to 2, the quantity demanded will also go from 1 to 2, right? So the percentage change is exactly equal. Or if the quantity demanded is 2, it is going to go till 4, because if this is a 100% increase, this will also be a 100% increase. Now, when is price elasticity of demand less than 1? That means when price elasticity is actually less than 1, a bigger change in price, or a bigger change in price brings a, a small change in quantity demanded. So suppose you're understanding what I'm trying to do here. Suppose this is pretty easy now, that a bigger change in price will bring about a smaller change in a smaller change in your quantity demanded, right? Now over here, now you can clearly see that the curve over here, my demand curve is actually elastic. When I say elastic, I mean to say even a smaller change is actually bringing about a big change. Think of a rubber band. You kind of stretch the rubber band even by a little bit. It actually gets stretched by a lot amount. So a rubber band is actually pretty elastic. So same thing's happening here. A little change in price is bringing a big change in quantity demanded. So this over here is elastic. Now this over here is actually inelastic, right? So when I say inelastic, I mean to say you have to bring a bigger change in price brings about a very small change in X. Now how do I use this in my analysis of this curve over here? Now understand one thing. If the price elasticity is actually, if the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, then the firm should actually do nothing, because the percentage change in price will actually be equal to the percentage change in quantity demanded. Let's suppose right now the firm is producing, let's suppose the quantity is 1 and the price is also 1. Now over here the revenue, the average revenue is actually equal to 1. Now if I increase my price to 2, the quantity demanded is actually equal to 2. Now in this case over here, if I talk about, so over here the total revenue is actually equal to 1 again. Now over here, if I talk about the total revenue, which is going to be 2 into 2, 4, and my average revenue is actually going to be equal to again equal to 2. So there is not an increase in my profit here, because it's actually increasing by the same factor. You can clearly see that it's actually increasing by the same factor. So when it comes to price elasticity of demand being equal to 1, your total revenue is something which is maximized, right? So that your total revenue is something which is actually maximized. Now, how do I know that? Look at this graph here. Look at this graph. At this graph, when price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, my total revenue is something which is maximized, right? So I'm just going to write here, when price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, the total revenue is maximized, right? And when it is maximized, you can clearly see that the marginal revenue is actually equal to 0. So when price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, the total revenue is maximized and marginal revenue is something which is actually equal to 0. Now let's talk about the next thing. That is when price elasticity of demand is actually greater than 1, which is this case over here. So when price elasticity of demand is actually greater than 1, now I'm going to show you this thing over here. Now a little change in price will bring a bigger change in quantity demanded. So if you increase your price, if you decrease your price by, let's say, a little amount, if you decrease your price, let's suppose by a little amount, your quantity demanded would increase by a greater amount, which will actually result in increasing the total revenue. Why? Because total revenue is equal to P into Q. If you decrease P by a little amount and increase Q by a greater amount, your total revenue will actually be will be a bigger amount, right? So it will actually increase. So when price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, or in other words, if the price elasticity of demand is actually elastic, a firm should lower its price, right? So a firm should lower its price. Let me show you an example. Let's suppose that the price is actually $5, right? Let's actually see it from this curve graph over here. So in these cases, the price elasticity of demand is actually greater than 1. Now if I'm sorry, in this cases the price elasticity of demand, it's something which is actually greater than 1. You can clearly see if I decrease my price, my total revenue increases. If I decrease my price, my total revenue increases. If I decrease my price, my total revenue increases. And when price elasticity of demand is actually less than 1, so when price elasticity of demand is less than 1, a firm should increase its price, because if they will increase their price, the change in quantity demanded will not be that low. So again, the total revenue will actually increase. Now let's see it again in this graph. So if you see it here, the price elasticity of demand is actually less than 1. If you kind of increase your price, so let's suppose you go from 5 till 10, your total revenue goes from 90 to 160. If you increase from 10 to 15, the total revenue goes from 160 to 210. So if the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, which means it's elastic, a firm should lower price to maximize the revenue. And if the price elasticity of demand is actually less than 1, which means it's inelastic, that means a firm should increase its price, right? So suppose getting all these 3 points, that is, in this case, to increase revenue, see, in this case, to increase revenue you have to go this way, which means you have to increase your price. In this case, to increase your revenue you have to go this way, which means you have to decrease your price. Fine. So suppose you're understanding this point over here, I'll just make a little graph. So when I say when PED is equal to 1, then your TR, that is total revenue, is maximized, right? And when the total revenue is maximized, understand marginal revenue is equal to 0. And from here, if PED is equal to 1, then marginal revenue is equal to 0. So from here, you will actually have two things, right? On the left hand side of PED equal to 1, you will have PED greater than 1, and on the right hand side you're going to have PED to be less than 1. Fine, guys. So suppose you've understood whatever we've discussed here, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video, and in the next video we're going to be talking about the profit theory, right, which is again a pretty important part of cost, revenues and profit. So don't forget to explore perfect-scores.com, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and this would be our email address to give us your valuable feedback. So this would be about this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.